This time on Captain Castle's laboratory, we're working on another gondola. So, this one doesn't work. That's probably why it's here. So, I've already taken the bottom off and removed the rocks. So, here's the rocks. Just to save on a little time. This is probably going to be a longer video. So I'm going to move this bigger one out of my way. That. So, I plug it in. Nothing happens. There's no motor tension. There's nothing. So, let's remove the screws all the way because I did put them back in part way. Anyhow, I'm going to show you a way to repair this for a lot less money than buying a circuit board. Apparently that center one's not out far enough. Trying to pick up the screws. There we go. Now we're going to screw the house. There's only 3 screws to hold the house on. I'll show you from the bottom. It's that screw, and that screw. And that's why you need to remove the rocks that go in this square. These 4 screws hold the mechanism tower in place. Well, I guess the screws don't want to come out. That's fine. So here's your board. Here's your motor, which apparently the belt fell off. That's weird. Let's pop this. So if you notice, there's no spinning unless I spin it by finger. And just to show, since the belt fell off and I didn't know that, I'm going to put a mark. And it doesn't matter which way I move this switch, it doesn't do its thing. Now we're going to remove the 3 screws to hold the circuit board on. And sometimes, if you squeeze the IC, it'll start to work. Oh, sorry, the motor's spinning. I marked the wrong pulley. As you can see, it's spinning. And if I flip the switch, notice it's not changing directions. Now I let go, it's slowing down. So let me mark the right pulley this time. I forgot I took the belt off. There we go. Sorry, the belt fell off and took it out. So you can see the pulley's not spinning. And now it won't start back up, of course. So what happens on these is the IC chip fails. And sometimes you can squeeze them, which somehow connects the insides, and it'll start to spin the motor. Which apparently just died on me again. But that's why it's here. So I'm going to show you how to repair this on the cheap using a switch using a resettable fuse and a piece of wire. Well, a couple of pieces. You're going to have to cut this. So you have to disassemble the switch if you get this style. So this is a DTPT switch. I'll get it eventually. Basically, when it's on this side, it sends power from the center out. On this side, it sends power from the center out. And if you put it in the middle, nothing. So what you need is one it's also known as a reversing polarity switch. The most common version of a switch like this that doesn't have the center position would be on your ceiling fan. That turns it from one direction to the other when you change it in the middle of the year, if you actually change it. So this one has the middle stop, which I didn't want, but nobody had the just here or here in stock. So if you get one that has the middle position, you'll have to disassemble the switch. Which here's the pieces. You got your housing, the silver, you got your switch, and you got your slider with the pins. So when you move this back and forth, these two sliders make your connections. And you see the ball detent? You're going to have to remove that too. So, and one last thing you're going to have to do is this switch. I tried different companies and they're all like one size too big. Has to be able to fit inside here. So you can do this. So if this is too big, you can trim the switch. If you have to trim the switch, I recommend doing it when it's out. Here's one I tried to trim and my tool slipped and you can see it's cut at an angle. But I didn't throw it away because the switch still works. But I wanted you to see what the insides look like. Because if you get this style switch, you're going to have to modify it. So we are going to replace this entire circuit board with these two components. And let's get to it. So first thing we're going to do is remove the power from the circuit board. Get that out of the way. For this, you're going to need to know how to solder, or you're going to have a soldering iron, or a soldering pen would be preferred because it's got a smaller tip. But you're going to have to be able to do soldering. Normally on some of them you can do wire wraps and twists and stuff. On this, unfortunately, it's not going to work so well. So, preface it with that. You're going to have to remove the motor and power wires from the board. So what I'm going to do is we're going to put a little flux on here so we can remove the wires and allow for good heat transfer. My soldering pen is on and up to temp. And now get rid of that. I'm going to untwist the wires. Put that down so I don't burn myself. Okay, so it's relatively self-explanatory. Red is hot, black is negative. So positive and negative are hot and ground, or I say hot and not. Your black and green are your motor wires. It doesn't matter which way you connect them because it reverses polarity when it goes backwards and forwards. So on this switch, to make it reverse polarity, you need to make a crossover jumper. And that's where we use a little piece of scrap wire. First thing you do is get some insulation removed. And because I need to make two pieces, I'm going to remove insulation from both ends. And then we're going to tin it. Make it easier to fit in those little eye holes. let's remove that ball detent before we forget to. So you need to bend up these 4 tabs. So your switch may vary. Most of them have tabs. Some of them have 6. Some of them don't have tabs and are not openable. But the 3 versions I bought to try, 2 of them were openable. This is one of the 2. The reason I bought 3 versions is because they didn't give me the exact dimensions of the switch, and I needed the switch to be comparable to the one on the circuit board. So it's the same on the inside. Now we gotta get that little ball detent out. All you need to do that is something small and pointy. So I'm gonna use the back side of the X-Acto. Be careful because there's a spring behind it and it's going to shoot across your room. There you go. So there it is. I'll zoom in and show it to you. It's okay. I'm not going to forget about the distance of the camera. And I'm going to double check to make sure that this actually does fit, because this is what turns your direction. It changes directions. It's what turns the switch. That's what I was going for. Gotta love it. You get old and you can't remember what you're saying. So now we're going to feed the wire through one of the eye holes on one side. And after I solder, I'll show you. And the other end I stripped. Then I do this just for convenience. You don't have to do it this way. As far as how I strip the wires. And then the way I feed them in. There we go. You know what, I'm going to zoom down a little. I'm going to narrow the field of view. Focus. There you go. So you can see what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to have this one diagonal here and this one diagonal there. The reason I stripped the wires, you can see, I can now just cut it here and here. I still have my full loop, and I can trim them and fit them through the holes and then solder the holes closed. And that's why I do both ends of the wire. It just makes it easier. Let's remove that glue. There. I can take my extra piece of wire and move it out of my way. Now we're going to strip a little bit off of each. You can tin them if you want. I'm going to try and feed them through. I do use, I guess I'll try and get back on camera. I forgot I zoomed in. I do use some needle nose pliers to help feed them through. So we're going to feed that one through right now. And then we're going to solder it in. And now I'm going to feed this one through. And we're going to solder this one in. How much you want to solder? There we go. So, basically made crossover. And you can trim off the excess section sticking out if you want. So that's what I'm going to do real quick. I'm just going to trim off the wires that are sticking out. One of the sliders fell off, so let me slide it back on. Alright, so now we have our crossover. we got our ball detent removed. So we're going to slide the switch piece back on. So the sliders fit right in the middle. So you got to make sure that they're actually lined up, like so. And then now the switch moves without that click. See how it slides really easy? And we're going to put the cap back on, or the casing, like so. Now you got to bend the tabs down. So you could use a screwdriver, pliers, your fingers if you're really strong. I use whatever I have around, and I'm just going to hold the metal tabs down. So I got two of them kind of started. Now I'm going to use really large pliers so I can squish them flat so it holds it nice and tight. The two I got partially bent down just keeps it aligned for me because they're actually really stiff. It's not like these are super easy to collapse into their original positions. Very similar to when you take apart a synchronous motor, all the little fingers that hold the synchronous motor. So now we're going to make sure it slides. Slides nice and easy. Put the pliers away. Alright, so next thing, we're going to solder these wires on. Bring this back over. So it doesn't matter which end, but solder the red and the black to one side, and we're going to solder the motor wires to the middle. I'm going to add fresh solder to the wires before I do that, just because the solder is old from when we just desoldered it from the board. One. And two. A little bit of everything. What nice thing about these green mats is the solder doesn't stick to them very long. And there you go. So it's just soldered to one side. I got the negative and the positive. Now I'm going to do the motor wires. Take some of the twist out, since they do twist them together from the factory, because I need to have enough slack for this to reach all the way across. So I feed, you can feed them from the inside out or the outside in, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to feed into the middle loop. Get my last of my solder. And one. That one didn't stay. Let's try it again. I'm going to do it up here so I'm not fighting the wire. And there is our reversing switch. So, just to show you, let's plug it in. Give it power. There we go. That is how you do it. Now that's if you do it without the fuse. So you don't need this. What this fuse does is if the motor stalls, it helps prevent you from burning it up. So if we're going to put the fuse in, you have to desolder one of these wires, which isn't a big deal. I wanted to show you 2 different ways of doing it. I should have said that up front. So I'm going to desolder. Let's not touch that against the hot metal. I'm going to take the ground off of that negative, and we're going to solder the fuse in its place. I'm going to solder back. I'm going to tin the fuse. So, there we go. And I get a lot of questions about fuses on these pieces. They really don't have any. They have some of these small ones here and there, but they don't prevent the system from failing completely. And you can buy resettable fuses, or you can actually just install fuses, but to do that you have to open your house or piece to do it. You look at it as this isn't a high-powered device, so the fuse isn't going to do anything. It's not going to help. If it catches fire, it catches fire. What am I doing? That's not how the fuse works. Sorry. Space that for a second. It's supposed to go across. So. That was my bad. Too busy talking and not busy paying attention to what I'm doing, apparently. There we go. Good. Good golly, Miss Molly. Let's get this thing fixed. There we go. All right. Now, the next step is getting this in. Now, you can get fancy and creative, and you can make a bracket that holds this in place, or you can use hot glue. And I use the hot glue method. Let me zoom back out because we're getting a little tight here. Oop. Oh, actually, I should probably show you. You can make this smaller. You don't have to have the long leads. So, crossover on one, crossover on the other end. So, on this case, the bottom left goes to the top right, top left goes to the bottom right, and the motor comes out of the middle. Doesn't matter if it's black on one side, green on the other. It doesn't matter if it's top or bottom or flipped. It doesn't care. It's just switching the power, and the fuse across the incoming power. We're going to go out. Zoom out. So let's turn on the glue gun. Check the battery. Good. Now, and while the glue gun is heating, nope, I just lost the spring. Oh, there it is. I picked it up and it shot out of my hand. So while the glue gun is heating up, let me zoom in so you can see how small these things are. So each one of these big white lines, squares, is an inch. You can see this is a little over a 1/4 inch. Those things 1/16. So very small little component. So when you take it out, the ball will come out easy, but it's the first one I did, the spring shot. I don't even know where it went. And it went poof out of the switch and it was never to be found. So when you take it apart, make sure that you're careful, because I'm not concerned this little spring is going to break something, but you don't want to hit you in the eye. That's the concern. So point it away from you when you pop out the ball detent in case the spring decides to follow. Now this one I just took apart. The spring was still stuck inside the base because there is a little, I don't know, grease or something on it that may hold it. but this one stayed. The first one I did, I don't know, bounced off a wall and I haven't found it. The vacuum will find it. I haven't found it. So we're done with the solder. So I'm going to turn that off. My glue gun is almost up to temperature. About still good. Now, when I first saw the gondola, I could never figure out why it had so many components for something so basic. And I thought, oh, maybe it paused. So I was talking with Suntronics or Mr. Christmas, Happy Holiday Parts, and he said the same thing. Now it just goes back and forth, but don't know why there's so many components on it. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Now what we need to do is make sure that this is in the appropriate alignment. If you're too far forward, too far back, too far to one side, too far to the other side, the switch will not switch. Hey, that's a little warm. So if you kind of center it right where the base lines up with the two studs, you can, well, it's turning in my fingers, but you can see it moves back and forth. So I usually put a small little dab of a line so it grabs the steel, and then I move this back and forth, and I'm doing micro adjustments on the switch to make sure that the switch is where I want it, the body. Now here's the thing. I'll grab another new one so you can see. Be careful with the glue. You cannot get glue inside of there, because what will happen is you'll either insulate the contacts, the metal bars, or you'll glue the sliders all the way to one side, and then it doesn't work anymore. And then trying to get the glue out, you'll end up breaking the switch. Now this came as a pack of 6 or 7, and they're only like $8. I'll link them below. But if you can find the ones that don't have the center detent, that's the best, where it's on, not on, off, on, as they list them. I have ruined switches in the past, not these big ones, the little ones, because the glue got into the opening on the sides. So be careful when you do it. So the glue is cured enough to where it's holding it in place. Now I do put some on the side, but only on the back of the flange. And then the electronic part on the bottom doesn't care. It's also, this does two things. Helps the switch from moving and also insulates these wires, just like they do from the manufacturer, just like that. That's why you saw on the circuit board, there's glue where the wires go in. It holds them in place and helps insulating them in case they stick up a little, they don't touch anything next to it. And then I put a very thin bead right on the front. It has to be thin so this piece here doesn't catch it. Another thin bead on the other side, like so. What we're doing is we're basically encapsulating the switch in glue and making a glue bracket. Now, this will hold, this does work. It may break over time, you have to open up and re-glue it. Glue doesn't last forever. That's why I said you could get some small pieces of metal and screw it in, but don't make the screws so big that they interfere with the wheel. I don't know where my little toolbox of miscellaneous metal parts is. I have little kit bashing stuff, and I don't know where it went. But the glue works, and I just let it cure for a few minutes or a minute to where it's hard. It's not solid. I can still push my fingernail into it. And then I'll put another layer. So I'm going to put a little near this stud. So just carefully and slowly adding glue levels to help keep this from moving. And it's not like it's under a lot of tension. I'm looking at longevity. I want this thing to stay glued for as long as it can, especially out here in Arizona, where we get hot enough in the summer that it makes hot glue liquid again. glue gun. Clean up some of these glue strings so they don't get caught in the mechanism. With my luck, you know, they'd fall and get wrapped around the gears and, yeah, cause all sorts of problems. That is my only dissatisfaction with glue, hot glue, is the glue strings. They are so annoying. Now, this piece, if you have one that fully functions from the factory original, requires tension. If your tension is not there, it will not work. And it's no different with the switch. If the tension's not there, it'll spin and not reverse directions. So, put the house on, plug it in. I'm going to have to hold this piece here because this doesn't have the rock weight anymore. And pull it, and then where's the switch? Switch, switch. So, it's not working like it's supposed to, and it just cut out because the fuse engaged. So, we'll reset it, and we'll do it again. It's very possible that I didn't have the tension right. You do need to have the roof on, or the house. This one doesn't want to work for me. Why not? Hold on. Oh, I see why. So, it doesn't matter which way you solder the wires. It does matter which way you put the switch in. I put the switch in upside down. My bad. Should have tested that before I put all this glue on. I was so confident in myself. But I can fix it without ungluing the entire switch. I just need to remove the glue from the top. I'll fire the glue gun back up so I can re-glue it. You know, the ones I tested worked fine. And then the one I filmed to show everybody else that it does work. I do it backwards. Story of my life. So to fix it, you can unglue the switch, or you can just reverse the wires on the solder. So if I push this in, it's the same direction. It needs to be opposite, so it pushes this side in. So the easiest way to do that is just reversing the wires. You can reverse them at the motor too. I'm going to try and reverse. Yeah, let's see what I can do here. Probably just reverse them at the motor because of the glue. So don't do a me and not test it. Usually I test everything as I'm building it, but I was overly confident. My mistake. Getting mighty close with my fingers to the motor. So we're gonna, or to the soldering iron. So I'm gonna use a needle nose pliers to separate my fingers from where the wires go. All I'm doing is reversing the motor wires, so the motor is going in the opposite direction from what it was doing before, so it'll actually work like it's supposed to. When you stick it in, you test the switch and make sure that when it swings to one side, it switches the motor to the other side. So the switch is upside down, but I can, like I said, fix that without ungluing the entire switch by just flipping the wires on the motor. Take two. Keep the tension. I didn't have enough tension. Am I out of the pulley? Also, make sure your strings are in the pulley. That can cause a problem too. So, tension. This one doesn't work like the other one. Oh, this is a comedy of errors. That noise. Sorry. It's making a sound. I'm thinking the belt's slipping, or the rope's slipping. They turn good. Big pulley works. I'm going to see if I have a new drive belt. I'm wondering if the drive belt's slipping. The motor has to be at full power for it to switch it back and forth. That's too big. And if it's not going to kick the piece over. And I'm wondering if that's my problem. Because I just don't think it has enough speed. Ah, there's the belt. I knew I'd find it. Set to the side. Let's try it with this new belt. A little bit different style belt. The original belt's a square belt. This is a round belt. The pulleys are either. There we go. So the belt was probably slipping. That was my problem. So again, I have to keep tension on the house because there's no gravel in it to stop it from sliding forward under its weight. So if I let go, see how the house slides forward. Then the knot, that's what this knot in the string is. You can kind of see it right here where my finger is. There it goes. You saw it as a pass. You'll see it come back out. That knot is what twists that fork, or I like to call it the wishbone because it kind of looks like a wishbone. Here you go. Instead of buying an $88 circuit board, $85 circuit board rebuild kit, and you can actually just replace with a switch and a fuse. And again, the fuse you don't need. It's low voltage. It's an option. It's not required. The factory one doesn't have a fuse. What the fuse does is if the motor stalls out, it will help prevent burning up the motor. Stalls out means it gets bound up. So this one, the belt's going bad. The belt's vulcanized. I mean, it's stretchy, but it's got a hard rubber, and that's why I was having so many problems there at the end. So that belt's now in the garbage. As far as the switch goes, it doesn't matter which way you wire it, as far as as long as you're diagonal and that you have your motor in the center. But it does matter when you put it in, so that when it flips, it turns the motor, and apparently I didn't put it in the right direction. So test it. Don't do what I did. I made a mistake. And then if you start having issues, apparently check the belt. Oh, now my hot glue gun's on, because I was going to re-glue the switch, and it is dripping all over my bench. So let's re-glue the top of this switch. And again, it's doing two things. It's going to help anchor the switch, and it's also going to insulate the connection. So if moisture or you take it apart, you don't drop something on it and arc it. So get off. Back under tension. Also, keep your houses straight. What happened was the knot got caught on the window where it pops through. So they didn't have the house on, it just dropped into place. So make sure your houses are in a relatively straight line. Make sure you have no things here in front of whatever you're doing, because this gets really close to the ground. You got about a ½ inch above it. But other than that, now you have spare parts that you can put towards something else. You're going to have spare screws, because you don't need the screws unless you want to stick them in those 3 standoffs that hold the circuit board in. You have a circuit board that might still have a good switch in it that you can use for other things. And if you want to rebuild the circuit board, buy the kit, practice your rebuilding skills, and then put the circuit board back in. All you got to do is reconnect the 4 wires, the 2 hots and the motor. I'm going to turn this back off so I can let go of it. And, you know, test your skills. So the circuit board, because I have 2 of them here, actually I have several of these boards, but here's the one that came out of this house. They're labeled. So I'll remove some of the glue. M, plus and minus, means motor, positive and negative. It doesn't matter because it's reversing. And then this one, which you can't really see because of the glue, it says B plus and B minus. Battery positive, battery negative. It's not a battery, it's a power supply or an AC adapter, but this only has a 200 milliamp draw. You could technically run it on batteries, but this circuit board was probably used for other things, and that's why they have the B plus and B minus, which again stands for battery. That's important. Make sure the red goes to the plus and the black goes to the minus. And then, I mean, it's basic components. You got your resistors, your little capacitors, a couple of 6 actually transistors. There's 2 of each style, so 2, 2, and 2. They're different labels, and then you got your switch. So this is a reversing switch. You can see how it's got the 6 pins and then the 2 anchors for the casing. If you can desolder this switch, you can use it in here. The problem is, in the process of desoldering this switch in the past, you have to get these solder pads so hot it has damaged the switch. So I don't try and reuse this switch for what I just did in here. I'd rather modify an existing switch or buy this switch where it's just 2 positions. But unfortunately, all the people I went to, this switch was back ordered forever. We're talking like 2 to 4 weeks. Problem is, it's a week and a half to Christmas, and this is part of a Christmas display. I cannot wait 2 weeks for this switch to show up. That would put me after Christmas, and this won't be in the display. So this has to get done. The video may not be up before Christmas. It might. I have no idea. It's up to the editor. But as far as this goes, this needed to be done. This was my option. This is what was available. And this is what I'm going to use. So I will link to where you can buy the circuit board components. You can't buy the board. You can get the components and solder and desolder. Careful doing it. When you do buy it, it comes with an IC spacer. So you solder all these in, it can get really hot and damage it. Whereas if you use the spacer, you see the chip block, see that black piece? You solder that in, then you press the chip in. And you can also see that the capacitors are much larger now. See the itty bitty dinky ones? You know. So there are some upgrades to the chip, the board. Also, if you see the red band resistors right there, see how much larger they are on the new kit? And that's because that's where the major power goes, and it's to increase its longevity. Unfortunately, I had to take this one out for now because this was a defective IC, and I'm waiting for the new one to show up at the time I'm filming this. It hasn't, as of today, it's not here. It was delayed in the mail 3 days, so I'll get it next week. But you can rebuild it. This is rebuilt, chip failed. This is factory, chip failed. The chips are old. These things were made in the 90s, early 2000s. So now that we know it works, and it was a belt and alignment issue because apparently I can't tell that the angle was off and it was wedging the thing, the knot. The knot's very important. We're going to put the house on correctly so it can't turn. So now the house is anchored. Now, as far as this goes, there's a few different options. You can just pour it back in here and put this cover on while it's upright. Or you can put it in little baggies and stack the baggies in here. So if you ever take it apart, you can literally just take the baggies out. So you keep some of these little Ziplocs. That you might get stuff in. I'll do this slightly different. That's how I did it for every other one I've done. I turned this basically into a piping bag. So I cut a corner off. So make sure the zip is zipped. Yeah. And then if you got too many rocks, pour some out. Get all the air out. And you just keep adjusting it until you can get it to fit inside. Now this cannot sit higher than this plastic because there's the lip that contains the rocks. So if you still have too many rocks, you just have to keep adjusting it and use different, you can use different size baggies or use the same size baggie and just put the different amounts of gravel in it. But you do need to put the gravel in it. It's an ingenious design, but it's also really annoying at the same time. I mentioned this to one of the other repairs people who found out the hard way too. These are full of gravel. These Limax, as an example, when they need a weight, You put in a big metal bar or a big steel weight, it's just one weight, or multiple weights, but they're just contained. The bar of 56 is like, we use rock. So they just went out front, grabbed some gravel, threw it in a hole, and said, hey, that works perfectly. We're good. It's cheap, but it's annoying. Makes a mess. Another way to do this is you fill all the rock in there and you use packing tape, the clear packing tape, and tape it across. I've seen that too. So we need to have that sticking out. So this can go back on. And technically, as long as you can adhere it in here and just leave space for that screw there, if you ever take it apart, you're fine. Now on the last couple I've done, so it still has all of its correct weight. I got the main weight in the center. I'll just kind of pour this in here. This one's different. The last couple I did, the gravel was much larger. This is very small stuff. So they changed the size of the gravel from different years. Now, we just want to make sure we have the same, if not more weight than they had originally, to keep it from moving. Now, if you want to take the time, you can mix white glue and water and spray this and make it hard, and it'll stay. Or you can hot glue the heck out of it. Or just remember that when you screw this back on, when you take it back off, that there's some that is no longer in baggies, and you got loose gravel. So it's up to you. The manufacturer doesn't do anything. They just fill it and screw it shut. So anything you do to mitigate the amount of stuff is an advantage. Having approximately one-third the amount of gravel coming out of it is better than the way it comes originally. Because the first time I took one of these apart, I had it on its side, and I removed the screws, and gravel everywhere, everywhere. And happy holiday parts when I spoke to Victor there. Said the first time he did it, it was all over his dining room table and floor. Like, yeah, I did mine on my workbench, so I had an advantage over that. So just be aware, it's full of loose gravel, and the big tower has more. It's higher up, but it has about twice, if not 3 times as much gravel as this little guy does. So once you get it in, don't break it, but make sure you snug the screws up. And lastly, very important for this piece, you must have the rubber feet. If not, it'll slide. If you lose the rubber feet, buy replacements. Make your own. Go get that sheet of stuff like I put on the Lemax houses that has peel and stick, and cover the whole bottom and just leave holes for the screws. You just need something that has friction. Yep, twisted the... There we go. And make sure it's piece of foam. So now as you see, it's running by itself and I'm not interfering with it. I'm not holding it. I'll slide the whole thing over so you don't think I'm holding it right there off the edge of the camera. Had it to, when I slid it, it slid over. So I'm going to put all my belts back in our little baggie while it runs for a couple of minutes here. Now, some of the complaints I've heard about this piece have nothing to do with its function, unless it dies. It is more of, there's no lights. So here's something you can do too when it's open. It is a 200 milliamp 6 volt DC power supply. And the motor that's in here can handle more than that. The motor in here can handle 8-9 volts, but I'm not telling you to change the voltage of your power supply. I'm telling you get a 300 milliamp power supply, or technically you don't even need that, because when I had this running on my bench, not this specific one, but the one I did before this, this thing was only drawing 110 milliamps on a 200 milliamp power supply. If you get a little white LED strip or fairy lights that run at 6 volts, those are the ones that usually have 3 to 4 batteries. 4 batteries is 6 volts, 3 is 4.5. But you can put a resistor on those. You can stick them on the inside and make this glow, so it looks like there's lights and stuff in here. The big tower that's over there off camera, because it's wider than this, you would have to power separately. But again, if you unscrew the base, it's going to spill rocks everywhere. So you can put stuff in the side. I'm going to turn this off when they get together. Whoops, I missed the switch. Let's do this again. When they get together. It's close. And that's because the two houses fit inside of each other. I like to have it. So on the big guy, rocks are in that dome. You can hear them. It's like a maraca. They're loose. And it makes a hell of a mess. But you can probably, if you really wanted to, depending on how your display is, you could drill a hole right here through the snow, and maybe a small hole right here through the rock, and then feed some fairy lights in here. So you saw the mechanism in here. That upper pulley mechanism is in here as well. Let's get that back on camera. It's just the big pulley with standoffs to hold it up, so it can feed in and out, and then you got the rollers right here, just like this did for the cables to guide on. It doesn't have the motor or the gearbox or anything like that, so you have more room in here, but you can put lights in here too. If you want to take it apart, go for it. Just don't forget it's full of rocks. I've also seen where you can put little fake smoke out of here with the little, because it's got the two chimneys. This chimney has residue or paint inside. This one's got a hole that goes all the way through. The one I worked on that I just finished had, this chimney was solid, and so was this one. And then the one I had is a parts piece, which I still have, just the houses and the mechanism. I got rid of the bases because they were cracked. Both chimneys are open, so they're hollow. That's just paint and resin. You can just drill that out and shove the wisp of smoke, so you can accentuate your piece, make it look more yours, personalize it. That's what I'm going for. I have seen, I don't know where, I think it was on a picture online, somebody just put a white light underneath the base, so this whole thing glowed like a nightlight. It's kind of weird. Wasn't bad. Snow doesn't usually glow, I mean, unless you're near Chernobyl or something. But for the most part, it didn't look horrible. It kind of looked like a nightlight. And If you do that, you want to use a bright LED, not incandescent, because of the heat. Plastic. So there you go. It says it'll be a long video, and I know YouTube is hating that. They keep telling me they don't like the long videos I do. But it's for the information and the options. And I show you when there's problems. Most of the time you see that, oh, it didn't work. Why not? Or, hey, I screwed up. I forgot to flip the switch the right direction. Or the belt's bad. It's slipping. So things like that. YouTube wants me to show you the thing working and then show you an abridged version of the repair. And unfortunately, if you're new, I can't do an abridged version because you need to know how to do this. And this is a complete modification or retro of removing 30-year-old technology and replacing it with the most simplistic thing ever. It's that KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. You don't need this when I can replace it with this. Simple. But there's got to be some reason, and unfortunately the person I would ask to tell me why they did all this circuitry when they could have just used this switch and one of these resettable fuses or capacitors, and that person passed away a few years ago. So I have no idea why Mr. Christmas and Department 56 did this. And the reason I say Mr. Christmas is Mr. Christmas designed this circuit board for Department 56. Mr. Christmas also used this circuit board in one of their pieces. And why? There is no reason. There's no delay when it reverses. To me, it's just overly complicated and a waste of time and money. But what do I know? I just fix things. But there you go. Here's the retrofit for the gondola. So if you have one and you're upset that it doesn't work, and you open it up and you see this big circuit board, well, you know, lots of components, and you're like, oh, I can't fix this. It's out of my wheelhouse. Get a switch. Get a resettable fuse. I'll put a link for some PCT fuses below. And I'll link the switches I bought. Again, if you can find in stock the other ones, go for it. Or just use the one on the circuit board if you can get it to desolder without breaking. You can't really screw up a switch. I mean, I did, but it's really easy to fix. Flip the switch over or just switch the wires in the back of the motor. So I think you can do this at home without any big issues as far as getting this one up and running for your display, whether it's Christmas display or next year, this year, or if you have an all-year display like I do. Mine's not Christmas, it's Halloween, but same point. If it fails and you're like, they don't make it anymore, people have them say they're selling for $50 because they don't work, I don't know how to fix mine, I don't want to pay shipping because it's a monster display and it's very heavy because of the gravel. Here's a quick and easy way to do it. I know the video is an hour plus long, but it's because I went really technical into it to help you out, and hopefully it helps you out. And if you have this piece and it does fail in the future, if yours is still one of the fortunate ones that are still running after 20, 30 years, now you can fix it for less money and less headache. So, and while it's open, if you want to add lights, it's up to you. I was asked that about a few people asked me how would they put lights inside of these two houses. Truthfully, if you don't have to open this one, I just drill a small hole, feed the wire, paint the wire white so it looks like snow, or paint it silver and bend it at a 90-degree angle with a curve so it looks like a pipe, you know, like a heat pipe, water pipe, sewer pipe, don't matter. And this one, since you have to open it to fix it, and you have access to the power from the switch, very low powered LEDs. Probably get them in white so it glows through the house. I wouldn't get them in yellow or soft white because the house is painted. It won't glow as good. That's personal opinion. It's up to you. You all can do what you want. It's your pieces. Modify them as necessary. Make them yours. Personalize them. If you want to stick a light in the base of this and make it a night light, go for it. Like I said, it didn't look bad. Just look odd. But anyway, there you go. It's all done. I will try and link everything below that I used, as well as if I can find somebody that's going to have a in-stock reversing switch without a center off position, I will link it below, and we'll go from there. And I'll also link the circuit board if you want to take your time and figure out how to rebuild one of these. and you have an extra $100 to throw away, I will send you the link. I'll put the link down below, and you can go back to OEM. But until the next video, thanks for watching. Have a good one.